Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, man, we have got one heck of a lineup this morning. Sidelines Friday edition. Rob Browne broadcasting live from the bunker here in Cross County, right outside of Memphis, Cross County, Arkansas, in the natural state. I tell you, folks, you can spend all the money you want, and a lot of y'all got it. Go out to Montana, like Boyd Wade said on the show a couple of weeks ago about trout fishing. Go to Argentina and catch a little 6-inch trout and put it up close to the camera. It looks like it's 8 inches. Spend $17,000 and go over to the Peninsular Club wearing your ascot and talk about what a great fishing trip you had. Or you can get yourself over to Arkansas. Best trout fishing in America. God, I love this state. Right next to Memphis. Of course, you live in Memphis, you're a TAM, a Tennessean, an Arkansan, and a Mississippian. It used to be the name of the old, WBA back in the day, WNBA in the 70s, the Memphis Tams. That's a great name. Hey, Dave Tompkins joins us this morning. It is Savant Friday instead of Savant Saturday over in the low country of South Carolina. He'll be in with us. Yancy Porter should check in a second. I think he's shimmying up the telephone pole in the backyard like, Oliver Douglas used to do on Green Acres to get on the party line. He'll be with us in just a moment. We'll be joined second segment by Vince Ferarra of the Sports Animal up in Knoxville, WNML, talking the Tennessee Volunteers. This crowd on their feet on the banks of the Tennessee River. In just a moment, the Pride of the Southland Band will come out and form that giant T. And ladies and gentlemen, it will be football time in Tennessee. God, I love that. I mean, that's what we love about college football. HR-2, hour number 2. Scott Rabalais joins us from the Baton Rouge Advocate. Man, met him at the SEC Media Days. One of the traditionalists, always wears a coat and tie to all the functions out of respect to the great writers, history, traditions, and heroes. And Ken Capps, another great writer, Football Writers Association of America. Man, has he got some stuff in store for us this morning on the show. Bo Carter, who is regularly with us, is on a special assignment up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he is up there looking and doing something with the Phillies. So we'll have him on here very, very soon. Looking forward to having him on here talking about college football, all the expansion. There's a lot of fun stuff going on. Hey, 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, at least 50 hours a month of content, over 600 hours a year. If you are a business owner and you want to get your message out, we are your best place to get it out. Sidelines, go to Rob Browne Sidelines. That's Brown with an E, Sidelines with an S, at gmail.com. Rob Browne Sidelines at gmail.com. We've got some great people joining our team behind the scenes who are just as important as me and whoever else is on the front of the scenes that you see every day. Can't do it without them. We're going to really ramp it up in the marketing side of it. So you want to get your message out to a target-rich audience. Sidelines is it. And follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live. Dave Tompkins, Yancy Porter will be joining us here in just a second. I'm letting Mildred sleep in this morning, so I'm doing everything. So I've got to simultaneously at the same time talk to you and do that. So I'm going to let you take over.
Your 1,000 moving part brain can handle it.
Yeah, that's right.
TAMs,
it's crazy.
ABA. Was Artis Gilmore a TAM? They had one. I think they had a prominent center back in the TAMs.
Johnny Newman he played at Ole Miss. Remember, Johnny Newman was the guy that just kind of like Pete Maravich, just could score. It was so cool to watch him. But I'm not sure if Artis Gilmore was a TAM.
I'm probably wrong. It's Savant Friday, and I reached well into the Savant vault for that. I probably missed it.
He may have been though. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm going to get a text here in a minute from someone about that because they're listening and they're gonna know if it was him, because when I look around at all of these unbelievable players that came through, just like with the Memphis Showboats. You know, that was Billy Donovan and Logan Young, and they had Brother Oliver as the defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And 5 years after the Memphis
Walter
Showboats
Lewis was their quarterback from Alabama.
Absolutely. Out of T.R. Miller down in Brewton. You know what they call that great rivalry? T.R. Miller and Brewton High School. The Battle of Murder River. And you know,
and in Tennessee, wasn't John Ward their play-by-play by 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, give him 6.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What did he do? He scored. Touchdown, Tennessee. Give him 6. Yeah, that guy was unbelievable. He was an advertising guy. That's what he did for his full-time, as they say, gig, whatever a gig is. I gig for frogs. But anyway, that's what he did full-time. Could you imagine him? He did spokesman like natural gas, you know, and the Vols always look better on a Philco. Remember Philco TVs?
And he was great in basketball too. King of the Volunteers.
I mean, nobody can ever beat Joe Dean and Tom Hammond doing SEC basketball. He'd be out there talking in
Mississippi, John.
Yeah, he'd sit there and go, little string music from downtown Lexington, KY. Oh, Stufferino.
Because he's so strong.
Yeah, I loved it when he'd say Stufferino. I mean, you know what Joe Dean did for a living before I think he became the AD at LSU? And we'll ask Scott Rabalais in HR-2. He was a shoe salesman, I think, for Converse.
Oh, really?
How'd you like to have him come by to visit for a while?
Yeah. Didn't he play basketball? He's a big dude.
Oh, yeah. He was like 8 feet tall.
Right.
Big man. He was a tall man. But, you know, his son, Joe Dean Jr., did some play-by-play or color work on the Auburn Basketball Network. Wasn't he at Samford? I mean, I tell you, Samford is a hidden gem over on Lake. You're from Birmingham. We had Martin Newton on the show last year at Lakeshore Drive, and we had Martin Newton and Bucky McMillan. Holy shnikes!
Oh, the Mountain Brook High School.
Yeah. He's something else, and it's going to be fun to watch him going forward. You know, where's he going to go? I mean, if Nate Oates were to say, I'm leaving Alabama, I'm going to coach UCLA, I want to be in the Big Ten, would they make a move for Bucky McMillan? Yeah, I'm going to the Big. Doesn't that sound? I'm going out west to be in the Big Ten. It don't seem right.
It would not surprise me. I mean, and that might. I'm gonna get in trouble now. That might be an upgrade. I think I like Bucky getting us through a March Madness more than Nate right now. So yeah, that'd be awesome.
Well, you know, you look at Alabama basketball and look at Auburn basketball, look at Tennessee basketball. When these schools get serious and start putting money into it, they start winning quickly, don't they?
Yep. I fully believe that Bruce Pearl has at least one more Final Four run with Auburn. He's just such a great coach, and I'm lifelong Tider, as you know, but I love Auburn basketball when with Coach Pearl.
Well, here it is. We have the best listeners. God, I love them. This is awesome. Okay. People also ask, as they say, what teams did Artis Gilmore play for? Artis spent 12 seasons in the NBA with Chicago 76 to 82, 87 and 88, San Antonio 83 to 87, and Boston 70 to 72. He was once the career leader in the NBA with a .599 field goal percentage.
Yep.
Golly. I mean, that is thank you. Our great listeners. That one from a listener, loving it, lounging out on his back deck, looking out over the bay in beautiful Fairhope, Alabama. Thank you so much, Chris. Hey, let's bring in our man Yancy Porter. Yeah, Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch them Monday nights, 6 p.m. Central, Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis, and all over the Magnolia State on Super Talk Mississippi. Notice that is 2 syllables, Dave. It's not Mississippi, it's Mississippi. This is a man born in Vicksburg, but raised in the pine country of Hattiesburg. Yancy, sorry about that. Mildred is sleeping in this morning. I'm in charge of producing. Forgot to send you the link. I hope I didn't forget. The other day I started off the first 2 minutes, had myself on mute. So my apologies. For those of you that are good with lip reading, it was a good 2 minutes. Holy cow. Yancy, let's talk some college football. If I twist your arm, will you do it?
Let's do it.
All right. Rebels, you've been to some practices. You've been down there. This is an awesome time of the year. Got Dave Tompkins on with us. It is Savant Friday. He's over in the Low Country in Beaufort or Bluffton, South Carolina. Beaufort. Okay. And we're ready to talk some college football. So let's roll. I'm on my first cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think the first thing that stands out is really Ole Miss has been lacking that real true NWO by that kind of game breaker at the wideout, like an A.J. Browne, Metcalf, Treadwell, those type of players that Ole Miss has put out in the past that they haven't had since Metcalf and A.J. Browne have left. Mingo was, he was inconsistent. He had the capabilities. He just wasn't as consistent as a true NWO, but they got one now, true freshman Aiden Williams. He's really been the storyline on the offensive side of the ball there at the wideout position to me. He's a freak. He's going to be a next first-round type talent there at wide receiver for Ole Miss, barring injury. He'll be a first-day draft pick. And then another thing that really stands out to me offensively is Judkins. Judkins is taking that next step. He is, he was special last year, but this year he's even taking his game a little bit farther. Really involved in the passing game now. Some deep passing targets, not just screens, setting up the ball, to get in open space, but going down the field 30, 40 yards, catching passes. So that really stood out to me as well. And then defensively, like last year, I think the depth on the defensive line is where it needs to be. They got a lot of quality depth there on the defensive line at both defensive tackle and defensive end. And then everybody wants to know about the quarterback job, but it's still Jackson Darts right now. He's playing well, but as is Walker Howard, he's playing well. And really, Austin Simmons is true freshman. I think he's going to be special. I really do. If I had to say the next big storyline about the future of Ole Miss, it's Austin Simmons has got. That's the kid from Florida that reclassified from the 25 class and the 23 class. Yeah. And so he's every bit he was built up to be and a little bit more. I was not expecting that out of him. And then Spencer Sanders is really throwing the ball good right now. He's got the strongest arm out of the group, I think, right now. But I still think this is Jackson Dart's team.
Dave, you're talking about Spencer Sanders coming from Oklahoma State, 4 years with the mullet. That guy's a great quarterback coach. But I still think Lane Kiffin is kind of the tip of the spear.
Yeah. I with this year sort of being the last year of the way it has been, I think there's going to be extreme competition in these divisions, because this is the last year of, if I'm not mistaken, this is the last year of true division play. And both the East and the West are so deep this year. So with the possible exception of Georgia, I have a hard time seeing any team run the table in division play.
Yancy, you're talking about that. I mean, the SEC West is the toughest division in the toughest conference in America. Think about it. I mean, can you imagine Ole Miss being in one of the ACC divisions with the talent they have? I mean, and this is what you deal with every year. And then watch Ole Miss go out and play. I remember some of those Big 12 matchups with some Texas Tech teams that looked unbeatable, and Ole Miss just pounded them, put 45, 50 points on. I mean, there's going to be a breakout season. Is this going to be it when the expectations maybe aren't as high because there's questions in a few areas maybe? But look, who's got a better running back than Quinshon Judkins?
Nobody. It's just the thing that's really hanging around Ole Miss's neck this year. You got to play at Georgia, at Alabama, at Auburn, at Tulane, at Mississippi State, your rival game. It's just a brutal schedule. There's no two ways about it. It's going to be tough, but to get where to make that special year, they got to split that Alabama Georgia road game and then win the rest of them. So it's going to be difficult, but I do think if this team, Rob, played last year's team, this year's Ole Miss team played last year's Ole Miss team on a neutral field, this year's team would win by 7 to 10 points.
Wow,
that's strong.
Yeah. I mean,
they got a good team. They're deep. Offensive line. I think Micah Pettis there at right tackle is one of the true top 2 to 3 to 4 offensive tackles in the country. I mean, I think he's going to make a huge name for him this year. He was a redshirt freshman starter last year, started every game, and he's just not only is he a monster, but he's just mean. He plays with that edge. The offensive line is playing at a high level right now. I think this team, again, would beat last year's team by 7 to 10 points on a neutral field.
Wow. All right, another one for you. Dave, last year, Yancy was talking at length about they had 12, 13 defensive linemen that were SEC caliber on the team. So, Yancy, here we are a year later. Guys leave, they go in the portal, they go work on their PhDs and stuff. But give me a number, because you got to have a bunch 2 and 3 deep on the front 7 in the SEC defensively if you want to win double digits. It's a must.
I don't think they're as deep as last year in that kind of number, but I do think they've got 8, 9 quality SEC defensive linemen.
Well, that's still pretty darn good. Pretty darn good.
Mean, for teams like Ole Miss, right, you're not going to recruit on that level in Alabama, Georgia, or even LSU. Usually Ole Miss's number is going to be in that 5 to 6 range. So these last 2 years, they have been blessed with a plethora of defensive linemen for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, it's Quinshon Judkins, another listener, saying Rocket Sanders. We talked about him yesterday out of Rockledge, Florida. He's a stud. Dave Tompkins, you're down in the low country. Jump on in here, man. I'm kind of bouncing around, but this is awesome discussion.
Thinking on the fly about Ole Miss's schedule. So I'm assuming they have LSU at home this year. And so if you have LSU at home and then the Tide and the Bulldogs on the road, I think they'll win at least one of those 3 games. And then the question will be, what happens after that? Is it a one-off or is it momentum? I think Lane Kiffin can get ready to surprise a team better than any coach in the SEC. And I think that's going to happen at least once this year and maybe more. And I've had a good, not knowing any real facts like Yancy does, I've just had a real good feeling about Ole Miss football the entire offseason. I think it's been, a little bit dormant with Kiffin, and I think this year could be a breakout year. As an Alabama fan, I hope it doesn't come at our expense, but it may well.
Yeah, well, I mean, good point.
Yeah, the Auburn at Auburn really is a concerning game if I'm Ole Miss, because that Alabama and Georgia are going to be just really, really tough games to win on the road. But a lot of people take that Auburn game as a win because of, they're kind of rebounding from where they were from the prior coach. But, Freeze is going to have them ready. He's been practicing against Ole Miss since spring practice, I'm sure, knowing him like I do. And that's going to be – that's the key. If they're going to get where they need to be, they got to win that Auburn game. And at worst, win out if you lose at Alabama and at Georgia. Will that be good enough to get in the playoffs in this era this year? Probably not. But, I mean, there would be a lot of argument for Ole Miss to get in at 10-2, and especially if you lose at the end of the games to Georgia and Alabama, there would be a good argument to get them in. And that's where they want to be. Lane Kiffin does not want to be, 10-2, 9-3. And missing the playoffs and going to the Sugar Bowl or something. That was fun one time, but he won't send the playoffs.
Exactly. And you gotta think that either Ohio State or Michigan will be in the playoff. Maybe both. I hope not. There really should be 2 teams from the SEC, and then maybe Clemson if they show back up. I don't know, but I can't wait for the 12-team playoff, and I hope and I believe that when we get there, there'll be at least 3 SEC teams in every time.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I would think he can have up to 4 to 5 SEC teams in it in the right years. It's just a shame that we're not playing that 12-team playoff this year. Just think how many more storylines it presents, how many more fan bases are truly in it to the end. It stinks. I wish it was the 12 teams this year for everybody.
Well, I think a lot of us just kind of want to. I mean, we can't wait for college football. We're counting down the days, counting down the hours and minutes. But there's a part of our brains that, at least for me, I kind of want this season to get over with so we can get to the next season. When we have all the realignments, goodbye Conference of Champions, and we have a 12-team playoff.
Well, look, if anybody's keeping track, we're 480 hours from college football starting Thursday night, August 31st. Utah hosts the Florida Gators. Now, the next one, September 2nd is when it starts in mass. And you just do the math. I mean, 22 times 24, I think you look at 508 hours away. Okay, if anybody's keeping track. Now, it is Savant Friday. But let me say this. The SEC West reminds me a lot of the NFC division with the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Redskins. Okay? Those
back in the 80s. Some are all in Madden.
Yeah. And you know what was best? They were so damn good, and Summerall was liquored up a lot during those broadcasts. But, man, were those broadcasts good? I mean, he was relaxed. Maybe some of these guys on ESPN that I see in TV nowadays, my wife even commented, my God, they're wearing clam diggers. Women wear those pants that are cut up above the calf or the ankle. It's like, who dresses these guys? I mean, my wife might say,
Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, my wife might think
CBS
that looks nice.
Movie.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. By the way, for living in a small town like Angela Lansbury lived in Murder, She Wrote, they had a lot of crime, man.
They sure did. Every week. You go, sounds like a pretty good lineup, John. Yeah, we were talking about Leonard Marshall's head and how big it is, Yeah.
Yeah. I you know what, Yancy, Dave, you've got to hear Rebel Yell Hotline. Yancy's on there with a guy named Chuck Rounsville. I've met Chuck a couple of times, but Yancy, you know him. I love that guy. He is the most enthusiastic, upbeat, positive guy. He's had the Ole Miss spirit forever. This is what I love is these local guys. I mean, there are good national guys. We're lucky to have them. I'm texting with Roman Harper right now because I said, I saw Spikes on TV this morning on SEC Network, and he didn't put you on his team from 1992 to the present, all-time defensive players. And so I don't know if y'all saw this, but Roman Harper comes on there and goes, come on, Spikes. He goes, let me get on your list. And he goes, man, you were this close. So he's going to be on.
Robert Ory was Big Shot Bob, but Roman Harper in football was the big play guy at Alabama and in the NFL. I mean, he just was always there for big plays.
Yeah, it was. And so Yancy, you look at that all-time team, and it's funny. You look at the players that are on there are impressive, but it's the ones that were left off, Yancy. I mean, that's what we're dealing with in the SEC West. It's not just the SEC, it's the SEC West. It is as Bill Walton would say, a division of champions.
Yeah, it's been a great division for a long time. I'm going to miss the East and the West. I'll be honest.
Me too.
Change is hard for me, I guess, a little bit. As you get in your 50s, you don't really like to change as much as you used to. But I'm going to miss the East and the West. I really will. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I love the road trips. I'm telling you, I've been to 52 games in Oxford, 37 in Starkville, and a ton in Auburn, obviously. But in all these different places, I hadn't been everywhere, but I've been to a lot of places. But it's the people. Wherever I have fun wherever I go. People say this group of fans, man, I go to LSU, I go to Starkville, I go to Oxford. I know a lot of people there, but it's even the people I don't know. That's why the SEC is so strong. Now, how these people, Yancy, from UCLA, how they gonna do it going to Columbus, Ohio, or State College, Pennsylvania? I mean, there's kind of a little bit of a culture difference there, Yancy. You think they can hack it? They won't be making road trips. Certainly not the bus trip. They're gonna have to fly in the tin cans.
Yeah, there'll be a big group that'll come the first 1 to 2, 3 years that they play at these stadiums like the Michigan and Ohio States and a lot of the schools there in the Big Ten. And then as we get further and further into it and you get about a decade, 15 years of being in the conference, that number of fans will drop from, say, 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 the first couple trips. And then before you know it, you'll be 15 years into this, and there'll be 500 to 1,000 fans there at the stadium. And that's for football. And then the rest of the sports, there'll just be a few parents. So it's not a good situation, I don't think. It's not healthy. I don't mind conference realignment, but they need to get the schools closer together. Everything going to this TV markets to get the TV dollars is what's driven this. But luckily, the SEC has stayed within its footprint. Yes, it's gone way out to A&M and up to South Carolina, but they're all connecting states, ways to still get there. But what's happened there with the Pac-10 and Big Ten, kind of merging there with a few of the schools and possibly some of the Pac-10 schools going to the ACC. I mean, I don't know if it's sustainable in the long run. I really don't. I think you'll see another realignment of conferences coming down the road once these schools start figuring that out, and that probably will happen about another decade from now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a cultural fit between Texas and Oklahoma and the SEC. I mean, even sure there's the proximity, and there's not a proximity with Los Angeles, but there's not a cultural fit between most of the Pac-12 schools in the Big Ten, with the possible exception of Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. It's just different, breeds of cat, schools of fish, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. And everything's based on football. But, I mean, what do you do about a softball game, with so many games they play in a week, and you got to play travel across the country from night to night. It's just going to put a lot of strain on the players themselves. And I think all due to this, I think in another decade, you'll start seeing realignment again. And people are going to get smart this time and say, well, we got to get back to our grounds and get schools around us. And I just think it'll take about a decade for that to happen again.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Yancy, we're about out of time, and Vince Ferarra is on the road up in Knoxville with us. But I agree with you. I think this will 2 or 3 years into this, if it even takes that long, the travel of the midweek volleyball game, Rutgers at Washington, Southern Cal at Penn State for a tennis match. Not that these sports aren't important, they are, but for God's sakes, these men and women, they are students. Remember, I mean, Dave graduated from West Point, Yancy. They didn't give you any slack. If you were a football player, they didn't say, okay, you got an extra 30 minutes of rack time before drills in the morning. I'm kidding.
Not at all. Not at all. And the same, the academic and military expectations for the football players are the same as for everybody else.
Yeah.
And that was
true student athletes.
Cool about West Point. Yep.
Dave, I want to go to a West Point game with you this year, and I'm going to do that. And Yancy, listen. Yancy, look, sorry I didn't send the link here. When Mildred sleeps in, sometimes I'm a little behind, but let people know again how they can follow you. Great stuff as always. And maybe, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but we're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow again. But let them know how they can follow you, keep up with the Rebels, and, of course, Monday nights, catch him 6 o'clock on Rebel Yell Hotline.
Yeah, social media, anywhere you're going to go, TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or any of them, is at Yancy Porter. And then, obviously, at Rebel Yell Hotline is going to be listened to the state of Mississippi on Super Talk and the state of Tennessee on WHBQ every Monday from 6 to 7. And thank you for having me on. It's good talking to you too, and we'll be talking soon. And God bless, and everybody have a blessed day. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. You have a blessed day as well.
Awesome.
I always love it when you tag out with that. Thank you so much. All right. Let me say this. Speaking now, Vince Ferarra is like, woo! It's like kind of a ghostly image. He comes up and he goes, oh, here he comes again. Yes, there he is. There he is. Vince Ferarra. He is a traveling Wilbury this morning, on the road again, like a band of gypsies. We go down the highway on the road again. Oh, I love that song by Willie Nelson. Vince Ferarra.
I love the Wilburys. They were great.
The traveling Wilburys. We had that question yesterday, by the way, and I asked that to Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. Who are the 5 traveling Wilburys? I bet Vince Ferarra knows, because Vince Ferarra is from one of the coolest cities in America, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, but he's actually from Tampa, but he lives in Knoxville. My wife goes, Rob, I love going to Auburn, but I think it's so hot down there. I feel like I'm on the surface of the sun. In Knoxville, I think of the mountains, clear streams. It's cooler. It's nicer. I think of Food City. Cousin Mark lives up there with the giant tailgate by the torch guy in front of the stadium. This guy, Vince Ferarra, and Jimmy Himes, two guys up in Knoxville that have covered Tennessee for a long time, are awesome. Local coverage. Hey, they always say eat local, buy local, listen local. Vince, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I appreciate it for waving the flag for local sports talk radio, hosting the morning show. And actually, my partner, John Wilkerson, we call Tennessee baseball games together on the Ball Network. He was on vacation this week, so I went to the big timers for fill-in co-host. So I used Jimmy a couple of days this week. I used former Tennessee linebacker Kevin Simon a couple of days, and then one of my high school football color analysts, former Tennessee running back great Jay Graham, was my co-host this morning. So we had a fun week, and then I'll be taking a couple of days off next week. Got to get those vacation days in before the regular season gets started, but great to be on with you as always.
Oh, yeah. Jay Graham, a 6 foot, 205-pound sophomore from Kannapolis, North Carolina. What did he do? Touchdown, Tennessee. Vince, this is Dave Tompkins on with us right now. It is Savant Friday. Dave and I comes on a lot. He's a West Point grad, lives in Beaufort, South Carolina, over in the Low Country, born and raised in Mountain Brook. So he grew up with John Forney. There goes Stedman Shealy, touchdown, Alabama. This Bromberg touchdown moment brought to you by Bromberg's Jewelers. Vince, you can tell we're getting pretty
listening to John Ward from Tennessee.
Oh, listen. And you know what? You ought to listen to the baseball with him and John Wilkerson. The Vol Network, Vince, is so they went to every county in Tennessee and got on the town square with a bullhorn and just got people to buy season tickets. And they built that. I remember they had 150 affiliates at one time. It's still the tradition of the Vol Network is no matter where you are, from the top of Klingman's Dome to the Delta in West Tennessee and everywhere in between, but they've got affiliates everywhere. Tennessee was really the first school, in my opinion, that recruited nationally in football under Johnny Majors in the early 80s.
Yeah, and they still have to recruit nationally right now. So now the state has gotten much better, so there's not the reliance on that as much, especially with the explosion in the mid-state. But yeah, absolutely. The brand travels. Before I ever moved to Tennessee, I moved here in 2010 and worked in as you know, Rob, in Alabama for a while doing sports talk. So I'm familiar with Dave's neck of the woods there. But before I had ever came to Tennessee, I would see that Tennessee brand and logo all over the place. You know, Tennessee and Alabama, you'd see the Alabama logo, you see the Tennessee Power T in airports in different parts of the country, theme parks. So yeah, it was known to me before it was a part of my everyday coverage in life, doing sports talk and working for the Ball Network.
You know, Dave, it's amazing to me that Tennessee, everybody talks about, I remember guys being over in Cache, Arkansas at the hunting club. We were hunting, everybody was, getting beard up, and it was when they got rid of Fulmer. And I said to all these Tennessee friends in the club, I said, the guy that replaces him will be the first of many to replace him. It's hard to do that, but they had their ups and downs, but you look to me like you've got the right guy. The minute they hired, I thought Jeremy Pruitt would do well, but turned out he was a lot like Shatner in the original movie, The Longest Yard, the guy in the shackles. They said, you want to play football with us? Nah, get to hit the guards. I'll play. But it didn't work out. He went to the Joe Stalin School of Charm and Personality, but he's a great defensive coordinator. But now you got a guy, and I watched him, and I'm going to tell you, Dave, you got to give credit. And this show, I'm in my first cup of coffee, but that's just my personality. But I love these guys, the sports animal out there on Media Row. From 5 a.m. until late at night, they're going non-stop covering all this stuff. But I thought that it was just unbelievable watching him, Josh Heupel, and Joe Milton III at media days. Josh Heupel is in control of Tennessee football. And I think they're on as solid a ground as they've been in a long time because he's got everybody pulling in the same direction. You know, Bobby Louder, Auburn booster, said when he was inducted and given the Lifetime Achievement Award at Auburn, he goes, everybody wants to drink from the well, but always pay respect to the ones who dug the well. There's a lot of tradition at Tennessee. When you start winning, man, it comes alive like the trees, you know, in the Smokies. It's beautiful.
Yeah, all those former players now are proud advocates for your program, and it only helps you in recruiting and getting the fan base excited. The fan base is already excited. I mean, they hit a 6-year goal for season tickets in 2 years, and then they've never had a stretch like this of donations and fundraising. That just incredible amounts of money being donated to and when many still are dealing with a tough time. So I think it's in a great spot, and you're seeing the fruits of that labor with football, because as you guys know, when football is working, you can get everything else cooking, and that has been the case. Tennessee is winning all sport awards and competitions, Directors Cup, Learfield, the USA Today. They're succeeding in a lot of different sports. Now, Tennessee wants to cash in more national championships, but now they're competing on those levels, getting conference championships and competing, whereas they weren't even in the conversation in many sports. So it's all feeding one another right now, kind of like a hurricane. The warm waters feed that hurricane to strengthen it, and that's kind of what's happening with Tennessee football, because they've got it right under Josh Heupel right now, and I think they're going to have a really good year this year. Some think they're going to take a step or two back. I think they're going to be different, but I think they're going to be very good as well this year.
I just got this.
I hate to say this, being an Alabama fan, but when you combine the city of Knoxville, the University of Tennessee, the entire athletic department, and now the football team, it is the top in the SEC. Just from the very beginning of the city all the way through the football team, it is the best, and I think always has been the best. And it takes little pauses when the post-Phil Fulmer, but it's back to both y'all's point, and I think they're going to have a great year.
Yeah, and I just got this in, guys. Brew McCoy is still on the team at Tennessee. And he was put on the list of the top 5 guys you don't want to tackle. What is he, 6'3"? He's a big guy.
Yeah.
But, if you're an Auburn or Alabama fan, long time, there is no better road trip than Neyland Stadium.
Oh.
Vince, I mean, the banks of the Tennessee River, the Vol Walk and all like that. What
Calhoun's.
You look at – it's just – God, there's just – and like Mark was texting us yesterday, Mark Ham – Rocky Top, I call him Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report. My wife's cousin, it's like her brother. He goes, which games are y'all coming to this year? I said, we're going to go to 2 this year up in Knoxville. And I don't know which 2 yet, but God, Dave's right. These, and I do believe, Dave and Vince, there are certain programs when they're good, it's great for college football. Tennessee's one of them. They're the 9th winningest program, Vince, in the history of college football. How quickly do Tennessee fans forget about some rough years after 11-2 season last year? I mean, that was huge.
Yeah, I think there's constant reminders, right? With this NCAA final chapter with everything that happened in the Jeremy Pruitt era, it was another reminder. In fact, it made this coaching staff look even better that they've been able to get out of that hole as quickly as they did, because we saw the levels of stupidity that were being done inside those walls. So the roster wasn't where it needed to be. The players didn't like being there. So now everything could not be more different than it was before. And it makes it even more impressive what they've been able to accomplish. So fans are not going to forget that. They don't forget anything, but it's not going to be their focus. They can now focus on the college football playoff if they want to dream big. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm not shooting them down. In years past, when they're maybe a 6 or 7 win team and you want to talk about college football playoff, then I'm going to challenge you on that. Being the second best team in the East, I'm going to let you do that because you are at least within striking range. I'm not saying I'm picking it, but I'm saying I'm not poo-pooing that. This fan base has been through so much. Enjoy yourself. If you don't get there, you don't get there, but you don't need to be beat over the head about everything that happened. When it's appropriate, you have to relive it, you do. So it's stashed, just like everything is with this fan base, man. They not a whole lot gets by them, but hey, it's an opportunity to look at an exciting future for them.
It is.
I've been to a handful of Alabama, Tennessee games in Knoxville. Always had a wonderful time. My favorite was back in 2010, I guess, when you first got there. And was at a tailgate, and Bruce Pearl happened to be at the tailgate. He was coaching the basketball team then, and he told an amazing story about Pat Summitt and the will to win. And if we have time later in the show, I'll tell the story. That lady did not like to lose. I'll leave it at that.
No, her everything is definitely missed for sure. Everything about her.
Yeah, and speaking, I remember when she passed away, Auburn's women's basketball coach for a long time, Joe Champy from up in Philadelphia, still lives in Auburn. They were very close friends, and he said, I was being inducted into the Women's College Basketball Hall of Fame, and it's in Knoxville. And he was talking to Pat Summitt about it, and she said, why don't you stay here at the house? And he goes, well, Pat, I am Italian, I'm Catholic, and I'm from Philadelphia. I got a lot of family. And she said, they can all stay here. And she did. That woman, she had a drive like you've never seen. And it was so powerful. It transcended into men's sports and all sports. And it's just, when you study people like that, it's unbelievable. Let's take a quick break and come back. Let's talk some, college football, whatever you want to talk about. Let me find this break right here without Mildred. Here it is, the blind leading the blind. I got the break set up. We're going to take it. We're going to be right back. Vince Ferarra from the Sports Animal in Knoxville. Dave Tompkins from the Low Country over in Beaufort, South Carolina. Not too far from where the Shamrocks are, that Marine fighter squadron that's legendary. Right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here with you. We've got Vince Ferarra in Knoxville on the road. Dave Tompkins down in Low Country, South Carolina. Vince, football coming up. Tennessee, tough division. Georgia trying to three-peat. Billy Napier, they're recruiting really well, but I don't know how much that's going to help him this year. Last year, Tennessee was on a gravy train with biscuit wheels until they went to Columbia and got bushwhacked. But they bounced back, beat Vanderbilt 75-0 or something like that. Beat Clemson. Beat them soundly, 31-14. So in those last few games, Joe Milton was the quarterback. What are you concerned about? What do you want to see him improve on right from the get-go that makes you think, okay, we're going to be maybe better than last year?
Well, he is the key to this football team. He's not my biggest concern, but he's the biggest key. And I think those are two different things that fans, I think, sometimes group together. I have concerns at some positions on this football team, Joe Milton is not one of them for me. There are unknowns, but I think he's going to have a really good year. He's not Hendon Hooker. He doesn't need to be Hendon Hooker, but he's got to be close at least. This team is deeper than they have been. They're younger and more athletic than they have been. They don't have to have Hendon Hooker 2.0 for them to compete in the East and have a really good year and at least be in the conversation for a college football playoff. They need him to be really good. And he's a totally different quarterback, Rob, than he was 2 years ago. We hear it constantly from him, from his coaches. Josh Heupel has said it. His offensive coordinator, Joey Halsley, has said it. His teammates say it. And then I pay attention to natural reactions, Rob. You ask somebody a question and they give you that, oh man, or, oh yeah. Just that initial reaction says a lot. And when you bring up Joe Milton, you get a lot of the wow factor. And it's not just because of his arm strength. It's because of his leadership, his energy that he brings. He is an energy giver, not an energy suction taker. Some people are one, some people are the other. And he is benefited so much from working with Hendon Hooker that he is doing what Hendon Hooker did to him for Nico Iamaleava. And in that, it makes him more accountable. And he knows that he has got to compete and be sharp because Nico is doing such a great job. And high praise for Josh Heupel for Nico at yesterday's first scrimmage. So as far as what he needs to get better at, to your question, Rob, it's the short to intermediate throws, the accuracy, 1, 2, not having the velocity, not throwing those 100 miles per hour. But you know what? We've seen him not in practice. He doesn't throw those fastballs every time. People have talked about he needs a changeup. Heard a bunch of analysts say that and describing what he needs to do. And we don't see that in practice. We don't see – he's got some juice to it, don't get me wrong, and more so than others. In fact, Ramel Keaton, one of their veteran receivers, he was talking about how they have to crank up the jugs machine when they're working because you got to put it on the highest setting because it's going to come a little bit faster. But that doesn't mean that it's too fast to where now you're having balls bounce off of the receiver's hands. I think he has adjusted there. The deep ball accuracy is important. And the one thing that Josh Heupel, he was really happy with him for what he did in the scrimmage 1 yesterday at Neyland Stadium and liked his poise, his command, and his operation of the team. The one thing he pointed to was situational football that he worked on. He said we can get better in those areas. But I think part of that is they didn't have their starting center, Cooper Mays, who just had a minor procedure done. Josh Heupel says he'll be good for the regular season. That guy right there is one of the most irreplaceable on the team. They're starting center, Cooper Mays. They still have competition at left guard and right tackle. So you had missing pieces on the offensive line, rotating guys. You had a bunch of receivers being held out for precaution a little bit. And so there was a lot of other things going on and maybe just didn't have the same chemistry with some guys. But that's where he needs to show that he gets it from a mental standpoint in some of those situations Hendon Hooker was so good at. But other than that, I think he's going to have a fantastic year. And his players really, really like him and will go to battle for him. And that's a big part of the equation.
Yeah, let me say this. Out of respect, history, traditions, and heroes, Dave was having a little technical difficulties there. So remember the old days whenever there was technical difficulties, this announcement would come on and you would hear this voice. See if this remains.
We are experiencing technical difficulties.
That was back when Bill Battle was the coach, and they had Haskell stand back and people like Condridge Holloway.
Man, I remember. I mean,
Stanley Morgan.
That would always come on there in the background, ladies and gentlemen, with the old organ music. But what you just broke down, and Dave, you heard him. talking about Joe Milton and just getting to talk to him a little bit there at SEC Media Days. I mean, it was a mob scene up there with him. And I asked him something about being from the muck in Lake Okeechobee, Pahokee, and Immokalee and all the. I mean, he is a small town kid, but he's 6'7" with a cannon for an arm. But he's very proud of where he came from, where he's from, and he's a. I mean, that guy. What's the story? Him and Hendon Hooker were very close, even though he got the starting job. That says a lot about the character of both of those guys. That's just my take on it.
Here's a little backstory on that. When Joe Milton was at Michigan, he was competing for a starting job. Shea Patterson was there, the former Ole Miss quarterback, and they wanted Milton the room with Shea Patterson, who he was competing with, and Joe Milton was like, "No, I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm trying to win that job. I'm not rooming with him." And that he looked back on that, and that was something he pointed to as, him maturing. When he came to Tennessee, got the opportunity to room with Hendon Hooker, and he jumped on it because he had grown and said, "You know what? I can't run from competition. I have to embrace it." And Hendon Hooker was one of those guys that put his arm around Joe Milton when he admitted at media days to our station, when he sat down, we hadn't really heard this story before. He told our afternoon show that in 2021, when he got hurt in that Pitt game and then ended up losing his job, that he wondered if football was for him, if he was basically good enough, and if he needed to just go home. That's how down he was at that point. But he shook that off after a week. He said, looked himself in the mirror and said, "Look, I have arm strength. I have leadership skills. I know how to talk to people. I'm a winner," on and on. And then he had guys that really connected with him and showed confidence in him as well. The Hendon Hookers, Wesley Walker, Tyler Barron, and the coaching staff. And so he regained his confidence. And then from that point on, he has been a different guy, continuing to grow. He and Hendon Hooker are best friends, roommates. I think he made Hendon Hooker better because Joe Milton is about love and having fun and energy. And Hendon Hooker, one of the biggest things that his current offensive coordinator, Joey Halsley, wanted from him last year was to play the game of football like he did basketball, and that's free, loose, and having fun. He thought he was a little bit tight. So you saw a looser Hendon Hooker, and then you saw him have that kind of year. So Joe Milton impacted Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker impacted Joe Milton. Now he's passing that on to Nico Yamaliava, the 5-star freshman. And so all of that is working together. Milton could have left and did not. He's gotten better. He's a different guy from 2 years ago.
Yeah. Even
Tennessee fans, honestly, guys, cannot flush what they saw from 2 years ago.
Well, Vince,
by the way, he's
he played with.
Okay. We were having a little technical difficulty there. I don't want to stripe up the old organ there. We kind of lost you there for a second. But
You made him jinx the show with that organ.
oh no, I'm telling you what. But I think about this. You just pointed out something that Dave. He's from your background going to West Point, being in the military, and then being in civilian life. You've been for a long time. But if you can't handle and you're not mature at the right time when you're that young, you can either define who you are for the rest of your life, or you can change. That's a great story about Joe Milton, and I have not heard anyone tell that story and describe it like that, Vince. Kudos to you for doing the homework, because I'm not saying it's breaking news, because everything's breaking news since 9/11, it seems, on the crawl at the bottom of the screen, but it's a hell of an insight, Dave.
Well, I think that I just heard one sort of, maybe now I have, okay, there's one good thing about the portal is that it's a chance for a fresh start. And, the whole roommate thing, so you're at one school and something goes wrong. If you're going to stay at that school, it's going to probably mark you through, the rest of your time there. But you can go to the portal, go to a different school, get a fresh start, and grow. And so I'm still not a big portal fan, but I just kind of learn one thing that can be good about it. And I think Tennessee is going to benefit from the portal a lot in the years, as long as there is a portal, because it's a destination place. It's got, in Peyton Manning, it's got, the sports media guy, and he's behind Tennessee. So I'm super bullish on the Vols this year, next year, and I think they'll be in the playoffs within 3. Well, when it goes to 12 teams, they will be in the playoffs, but they're a playoff contender this year.
Yeah.
And Dave, I'm glad you brought up the portal, because this Tennessee football team, some of their best, most explosive players that didn't get on any of these preseason all SEC lists, because they basically just look at stats from the year before and filling those out, are guys from the transfer portal. Obviously, real quick on Joe Milton, he's an example of what you can and should do with the portal. Wanted a fresh start from Michigan, but could have jumped back into the portal and gone somewhere else, knowing that Tennessee signed a 5-star freshman in Nico, who is the future. He could have bailed, gone somewhere else, and said, well, they want him, so I'm going to go somewhere else. He didn't do that. So you also, even though the portal's there, you don't have to use it. So he's an example of someone that used it as a grad transfer, by the way, right, initially, and could have transferred again. He used it when it was right for him, and he didn't use it just because it was there. So I think that's a smart use of the portal. Unfortunately, not everybody does it that way. But as far as transfers, 3 guys to keep an eye on from the portal for this year's team. Dante Thornton, the wide receiver from Oregon. My goodness, 6'5", can run, play the slaughter outside. He is going to be a factor for Tennessee at wide receiver. Left tackle John Campbell Jr., transfer from Miami, had starting experience there. He's having an excellent camp, and he will be a big addition for that portal in his first year. And the other one is Omar Norman Lott, who is impressing so many people, including D-line coach Rodney Garner. I think he's got a great shot to start it with the inside tackle spot opposite of Omari Thomas, a veteran in the SEC. And so those 3 guys, there's other transfers, but those are the new transfers that I think will be a big part of Tennessee's success. And then you have past guys like Brew McCoy and others still on this team.
And I think the community matters in the portal. And you're
right.
You're moving to Knoxville. I would. Austin, Texas is probably the only place that has more, sex appeal, if you will, than Knoxville.
Right. And they'll be in the SEC too, so that will be direct city to city.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's the battle for who can say they're UT. I mean, Tennessee was first. Remember that. Remember that great Waylon Jennings, T for Texas, T for Tennessee. That's going to be a fun rivalry. All right, got a question here from a listener in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Hugh Beaumont.
Yep.
Hugh Beaumont says,
"That's where I'm right now. Is in Oak Ridge."
Okay.
Sorry.
Hugh Beaumont lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and says, how big a check do I need to write to run through the giant T at the opening of a Tennessee home football game in Neyland Stadium?
At least he's willing to write a check. I've got people that say, Vince, man, can you hook me up? Can you get me to run through the T? Yeah, I don't have that kind of stroke. Not yet. So it's the check's got to be big. The check's got to be big for sure.
Yeah, well, look, great stuff as always, Vince. You do so much. Like I say, I am such a big fan of the local writers. Again, we have satellites up in space. The military uses them. Dave, you know this. They can see troop movements all over the world, but until there are boots on the ground, nobody knows the intent of those boots on the ground. And eat local, buy local, read local, listen local. Local sports media, local media work harder than a dozen Mennonite farmers to bring the stories to you. Nothing against the national guys, but I love the local correspondence because, man, you know where things are, you know where people are. Let people know how they can follow you, keep up with you. And as always, thanks for taking time out of your Friday morning to share it with our listeners and viewers.
Well, Rod, appreciate it. And on that subject, a lot of times when a team that you cover comes up on the national landscape, you can tell that they're not dialed in and they're just talking generically about that team because you're in the know, you're following it every day, and they're saying things that aren't on point. You get that from the locals. So I appreciate you shedding some highlight on that. You can follow me on Twitter at Vince Sports, VINCE Sports. At practice, I've been to almost every one of the practices. Scrimmage was closed yesterday, but get highlights. You can get highlights from all those practices each day on our website at 991thesportsanimal.com. It's on our video section. Also, you can follow us on YouTube. All our socials and our YouTube channel is Sports Animal 991. So if you want some Vols coverage, whether you're a fan of the Vols or a fan of another SEC team and you want to see and get some intel on what Tennessee's doing, you can see it from practice. Over 40 interviews on video, over 50 on podcast. UT has been amazing at giving us coach and player interviews, guys. I've never experienced a preseason with more avails going through the entire coaching staff, true freshmen, one after another. It's been very, very cool to get a chance to learn a lot about them by talking to them as well. That's another benefit of being local, and we try to share that as well. So 991thesportsanimal.com is the website.
I got the app on my phone. We'll be listening to you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
All right, guys. You do the same. Appreciate you.
You bet.
I'm telling you,
and
Rob,
we're bringing Scott Rabalais right now. Yeah, they do, and it's getting better. And like he said, and Scott Rabalais down in Baton Rouge with the Advocate has been writing since '89. And I met him up at SEC Media Days. We got Dave Tompkins with us from over in the Low Country in Beaufort, South Carolina. But walking around, the writers are like our professors that we had in school. When they say something, they mean it because they've written it. And I mentioned your name. We got a couple of members in our hunting club from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Tanner Smith, the Stein family, Stein Home and Yard all over Louisiana. He goes, I know a few Rabalais. And I'm like, I love having someone on that knows Baton Rouge, and he's got about 17 minutes with us before you got to go to practice. But Scott, thanks for taking time out of your Friday morning to join us. It means a lot to us, our listeners and our viewers all over the place. I've already got a stack of questions on here for you, but you're our guest, and we'll put the ball in your hands and run with it. Tell us what's going on in Baton Rouge.
Well, thank you very much. The Tigers are nearing the halfway point of their preseason camp. It's been really hot here, like a lot of places around the South. So they've been splitting time practicing in the indoor facility and then practicing outdoors to try to kind of minimize the exposure. Nothing really major yet in terms of installation, I don't think, or they haven't scrimmaged or anything like that we've seen. But just watching the practices and seeing the newcomers and seeing how the offense looks, and they have a lot of returning starters, but a lot of replacements in key areas as well. So it's just been we've had. I was hearing your previous guy talk about access. Coach Kelly has given us pretty good access during the preseason. No, practices aren't usually open during the regular season, but so far it's been good. It's been illuminating to see what they're going through as they get ready for that season opener with Florida State, which is a big one. I imagine, as y'all saw, the coaches poll came out. LSU was number 5. I think Florida State was number 7 or number 8. I imagine when the AP poll comes out Monday, it's going to be a similar thing. There's going to be a top 10 matchup when they meet in Orlando to start the season.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about this, Brian Kelly also is with the injury list, kind of like they do in the NFL.
Yes.
I really believe this is happening. I think that what we've done is we've pushed back. I love the sports information directors. I met one of the legends. I've always known about him through my friends at Auburn that mentored me, David Housel and Buddy Davidson. And I always say Reba Gullidge because she ran that office and treated me. She pulled out every letter I had written to Auburn from when I was 5 years old, when I first met her, when I was 19 or 18. He goes, "You're that Rob from Memphis." But I have so much respect for the writers because you take it so seriously. You still indent 5 spaces to the right. You're at media days, Dave, and we're all about the same age. He's wearing a coat and tie like Tony Barnhart does, out of respect to the great writers that
because
came
of Tony
before
Barnhart. Yes, pretty much.
And I'm glad to hear. Yeah, and Tony was on the show earlier this week with us, and I cannot thank you enough for taking time to be on here with us because we got a ton of LSU listeners. It's not just LSU people. Dave is a born and bred in Mountain Brook, Alabama guy who graduated from West Point. But we love.
And I'll be in Baton Rouge to watch. Hopefully, y'all take it easy on us here in October.
Yeah, LSU Army's coming. Army's coming to Baton Rouge for the first time ever. They haven't played since, I guess, the 1930s at old Yankee Stadium. So yeah, that's going to be a treat. It's going to be a treat to see Army come to.
I'm super excited.
An Army Navy game is on my bucket list.
Alabama games, but I'll be watching my beloved Black Knights. Try to keep it interesting for a little bit.
Very good. I hear they're going to a spread offense at Army. That's going to be a little.
They are
a little different.
Seriously.
They're leaving the option behind. They brought in a new offensive coordinator. Jeff Monken is super bullish. He thinks they're going to become an even better team. We got a brutally hard schedule this year, highlighted with LSU, but also playing Syracuse, Coastal Carolina. We're an independent, and I think we have like the 16th or 17th hardest schedule in all of college football. So it's a tall order for us this year.
Yeah, I mean, and I got a question here right now, Scott, from one of the listeners. He just said, were you surprised when Walker Howard so quickly entered the transfer portal, but they've got a hell of a quarterback room already in Baton Rouge?
Yes, I was, because he seemed to accept his role last year. He redshirted last year. Like Jaden Daniels came in as a transfer. Yeah. You figured at the time, and of course it didn't turn out to be the case. It turned out you figured at the time Jaden was only going to stay for 1 year. And then Garrett Nussmeier was ahead of him, but he thought, he can battle it out with Garrett this year or at the most next year. You don't have to wait that long. And he's still in a spot where, he didn't transfer to a school like Jaden did, where it's like, okay, you're going to be the guy, or you have a real chance to be the guy right away. Jackson Dart, obviously, it's entrenched as the starter there. So I was a little surprised in the fact that his dad played quarterback at LSU, was a legacy at LSU. Jamie Howard played in the early and mid 90s for the Tigers. But, it certainly becomes such a volatile position. I guess in the end, Rob, I have to say I'm a little more surprised they got Garrett Nussmeier to stay than Walker Howard to leave, because to convince Garrett Nussmeier to stay and to wait his time, and Brian Kelly has talked extensively about how it's a competition. It's Jaden's got to earn it, that sort of thing. Jaden Daniels is going to be the starting quarterback for LSU. He's taking the first snap against the Seminoles, and there's no reason not to expect that. And so Garrett has had to accept that he's the understudy. Could play some, Jaden got knocked out of a couple of games last year. Could play some, and so anyway, that also, despite the fact Walker left, leaves him with a really good quarterback situation. Compared to a lot of, I think would be the envy of a lot of schools. An experienced seasoned starter, a very talented backup who could come in and could win you a game. It wouldn't quite be the same, but he could win you a game. He could be starting at some other schools with Nussmeier, and then you got a couple of young guys coming up behind them, and they're continuing to recruit quarterbacks every year. But yes, it was a surprise that Walker stayed, but I guess ultimately that they kept Garrett around and convinced him. Brian Kelly's an old politician, and he worked for before he became a coach. He worked in Gary Hart's presidential campaign back in the 1980s. So I guess he still got some political chops left in him.
I
mean, Hart,
you know what?
The photo on the boat.
Yeah, I mean, I just sit there and think about, though. I've been hearing some really like what Vince said about Knoxville having access. I mean, it is, Scott, you wouldn't be 34 years later still writing for the Advocate and have the respect that you've earned. You weren't given, you earned that respect that you have, because you know what off the record means and on the record means. Ron Higgins wrote in the Memphis Commercial Appeal for a long time, and I think of George Lapidus and other writers who would spend a morning or an afternoon with a head football coach. You're that kind of writer who would do it. If you could spend an afternoon drinking a few cold road sodas and having some great food with Brian Kelly, what questions would you ask him about, hey, what was it like at Notre Dame, and what do you think about LSU up to this point? And, I mean, who cares? He's from Boston. So is Bruce Pearl. Nobody cares. These guys all win. I'll take more Boston people any day of the week if they can win like this.
Yeah, I mean, people talked about,
Scotty.
Is he a fit? Is he a fit? But if he wins, he was a fit. If not, people won't accept him. They'll treat him like he's one of their own, like he's their cousin from Napoleonville if he wins. And look, Ed Orgeron was the perfect fit. Ed Orgeron was the ultimate fit at LSU,
Sure.
right? I mean, he's from South Louisiana. He looks like a guy. Yeah, I work at the refinery with a guy like that, or I worked on a fishing boat with a guy like that. And in the end, he didn't win enough. So. But Kelly has been good about the like I said, the access. He's been better to deal with than I expected. I expected. I dealt with him at a couple of bowl games and that sort of thing, and they beat LSU twice in bowl games actually. And I saw him at the national championship game against Alabama.
Yeah,
about a decade ago, and I expected him to be kind of Nick Saban light, and he hasn't been like that. I think he's become more personable over the years, according to people who covered him at Notre Dame and maybe at Cincinnati. He's been very engaging and interesting with his comments. I think he even won some people over at media days who maybe people are saying, how could he leave Notre Dame? That's what they're really deep down saying, how could you leave Notre Dame for LSU? But a question I would ask him would be just and I have asked him this, but I'd love to delve deeper into this. Is as someone who's 61, how has he dealt with the massive changes in coaching? The fact that NIL and the transfer portal is such a prevalent part of what they do now, and the recruiting process and keeping players, and you have to constantly re-recruit them, I suppose you would say, to a certain degree. And some coaches just have thrown up their hands, understandably so, said, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I know some coaches who have done that. But coaches like him and Kim Mulkey have continued to find their edge. They're about the same age. They continue to find their edge and succeed in this even more challenging era that we have in college athletics.
Yep.
For him to beat Alabama in his first year, I mean, I talk about taking the monkey off your back, the chip off your shoulder. I mean, I've got to believe it's given him a ton of leeway in the LSU community in Baton Rouge just to do that. I mean, and it broke my heart, but I was like, well, good on Brian. That bought him a lot of slack.
Like nothing else could. I mean, it's one of those coaches are fond of saying, hey, every game's the same, but there are games that mean more, and that's one that means the most. So many LSU fans, and perhaps incorrectly, I would say, they really have demonized Nick Saban over the years. But you have to say yes, he's been beating you a lot of the years, most years than not. But at the same time, he's the guy who set you up on this path to be successful. 3 national championships in 20 years, something only eclipsed by Nick Saban in Alabama in college football. So, but that was a huge win, and to have the guts to go for 2 at the end of the game, just decide it. I thought that was the right move. It's something probably he's never said it, but I'm sure it's something he thought he probably should have done at the end of the Florida State game instead of kicking to go to overtime. Of course, the extra point got blocked, and they lost by a point to the Seminoles. So, 1 point game here, 1 point game there. I mean, seasons turn on a dime, and the fraction in these small fractions. But that was, a gamble that paid off very handsomely for Brian Kelly in terms of his acceptance and trust with the LSU fans. No question. Nobody they'd rather beat than Nick Saban.
I've got to believe the fan base and the community is just super excited this year. That just really just can't wait for the season to start. Obviously, you start with the huge game, but to be 1-0 coming after that, I got to believe there's gonna be a lot of momentum. Oh
yeah, I mean, there's excitement mixed with a little apprehension, in that LSU is it's a tough game. Florida State is it's a coin flip game, but it's kind of it's a high risk, high reward kind of game. If they lose, LSU's not out of the college football playoff picture. They pretty much have to run the table after that. That means winning in Tuscaloosa in November, but they're not out of it. If they win, after that you play Grambling at home, at Mississippi State, Arkansas, and at Ole Miss, at Missouri. Ole Miss is a tough game. Arkansas, none of those are SEC games are pushovers, but you have a real chance if you win that game to be 6-0 going into the Auburn game. and then you play Army, and then you play Alabama. So it sets them up very well. It's huge for both teams, the Tigers and the Seminoles. But yeah, there is a buzz here that you probably haven't seen since. As I've said before, it kind of reminds me of 2019. I'm not saying this is a 2019 kind of team, because that was a perhaps once in a lifetime kind of team, but it's similar in terms of it's the second year back with a transfer quarterback, and they kind of established things, and they got a lot of starters back, and you see the combination. We talked to Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, yesterday, and he spoke a lot about the fact that a year ago they didn't know each other very well. The players didn't know the coaches didn't know the players. They didn't know what they had. A year ago, Miles Brennan was still talking about the quarterback derby. Miles Brennan was still on the team. He only quit on August 15th when he decided to hang it up. So you thought at this point a year ago he still had a chance to be the quarterback. So much has changed for LSU, and after a 10-4 season, there's certainly a feeling of a lot of momentum going into this season for sure.
Yeah, and I know you just got a couple of minutes before you got to go to practice. What if you're looking at this SEC West this year? LSU has a lot of momentum. Alabama, Nick Saban has never gone 3 straight years without winning a national championship. And you think about this division alone, there are only 6 schools in the last 13 years in college football that have played for the national championship more than once. LSU, Alabama, Auburn. I mean, it's a crowded house. What other team are you concerned about besides Alabama? If you're LSU.
That LSU plays, or just in general in the SEC?
That LSU plays.
Oh,
that LSU plays in the West. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say Ole Miss. I mean, you kind of want to say Texas A&M, but I got to see some evidence that Texas A&M is going to get their act together, and it's not going to come to Baton Rouge with at least 5 losses. I got to see some evidence of that, and they've got some make or break games facing them as well. But I think Ole Miss, again, a returning quarterback, more ingrained in the Lane Kiffin system, and LSU's got to go there. That's not going to be an easy trip. I've seen some people say, I think LSU's going to 11-1, and that's the game they're going to lose. And I could see that. So I would say and Arkansas, of course, with KJ Jefferson coming back, he's a very talented quarterback. He's up there, getting first team preseason All SEC honors along with Jaden Daniels and Dart and a couple other guys. So I would say Ole Miss for LSU is the biggest threat since LSU goes to Oxford this year. Even that you might remember that 2019 team struggled in Oxford to win. That was like a game where it was like 75-72 or something. It wasn't that bad, but it was 50-something to 30-something. It was a high scoring game, and I think it could be that again.
Yeah,
it seems like every year, at least once every year, if not more than once, that Lane Kiffin sort of serves up a masterpiece game where they play significantly better than they play in their other games. And in that game, they can give anyone a game and beat anyone. It seems that that's sort of been his history as a head coach.
Yeah, and they probably feel like they owe LSU. And LSU stomped them last year. Ole Miss came to Baton Rouge last year undefeated, and LSU won. Ranked 7th in the country, I believe, and LSU won 45-20. And that was another game. People stormed the field, and you're like, they stormed the field twice in Tiger Stadium last year, and that was the first time. And because that was just such a kind of that was the game that kind of set them up after having lost to Tennessee badly. They set them up for like, oh, maybe they can be good. Maybe they can play with Alabama. Then they beat Alabama. So it's always a great game. It's going to be very interesting going forward to see where that game is placed with the 2 teams schedule. If it's a 1-7 format, I don't think they're going to play every single year. If you only have one permanent opponent, I still think the permanent opponent for LSU is going to be Texas A&M, because Ole Miss is going to have to play Mississippi State. If it's 3 permanent opponents, I feel very confident Ole Miss is going to be one of those, along with A&M and probably Alabama as well. That's what I've been told. That was the plan going into this new schedule. So we'll see, but obviously the game is very early too this year. By the way, it's end of September. Usually they play in November or around Halloween. That was the Billy Cannon punt return game on Halloween night,
right?
That sort of thing. So it's a little earlier this year, but a great rivalry that's kind of underestimated now a little bit in college football.
Well, look, I promised we would get you out of here by 19:20 after, because you've got to get to practice, but. Please come on again soon. Got a bunch of questions we can't get to, like is LSU healthy and all, but people know how they can follow you. Keep up with all the great work because you do it every day of the week. You're putting out great content on LSU and college football, but you've also got a great pulse, an idea of what's going on going forward. I like what you said about A&M. That'll be a fun one to watch too.
Absolutely. And LSU is very healthy at this point. J.K. Johnson, a cornerback who transferred from Ohio State, is out with it looks like a fractured foot or something like that. So he's out for a while. He's on one of those. You see him rolling around one of those kneeling carts, that people are on when they hurt their leg. But otherwise, they're pretty healthy so far. All our stuff is at theadvocate.com or NOLA, NOLA.com. And I'm on Twitter or X or whatever we call it these days. Rabalais.
I don't know what it is.
I know. I'm still gonna. I'm old school. Twitter has been around.
So am I.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I still want to say Twitter. And
I'm a Twitter guy. I'm old school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
let's go back a week.
We're on there. Rabalais ADV and theadvocate.com is our main website.
All right, look, have fun out there at practice. And again, thank you so much for taking time to join us. I appreciate it. Scott Rabalais of the Baton Rouge,
thank you, Rob.
The Advocate. 34 years, folks. You cannot say you've done that unless you've done it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, let's do this. Let's go to Ken Cap's going to join us here in just a moment. Hey, Scott's great. Again, we've got some awesome guys covering LSU for us. Jimmy Ott, the Ott father, ESPN 104.5 down in Baton Rouge. Jacques Doucet, WAFB Channel 9, two-time Sportscaster of the Year in Louisiana. And, of course, Frank Duffy, go Tigers, Mr. LSU Tiger.
I was about to say, has he come down to earth yet after the College World Series?
He's working on it. I think he wants to be a PA announcer at an SEC school. I mean, he loves this stuff. But let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. I can get some more coffee. And we've been having a few little internet technical difficulties today, but Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, will be joining us here right after this quick break on Friday's edition of Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
We're trying to get Ken here. We're having a little I don't know what's going on in the atmosphere
I
today.
feel
Maybe
like
it's
I'm
the
Ed McMahon
fire
today.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not sure what's going on there, but Ken hopefully should be popping up on here. Try this one here in just a second. He is traveling on a Greyhound bus heading toward San Angelo on his way to Austin on the way back from Lubbock. He sounds like a Waylon Jennings song. Who's still the king of swing in Texas is Bob Wills. But, Scott Rabalais, another one. You get these guys that are local. He's got such rich tone and tenor in all of his comments. And I love what you're doing, Dave, because, again, you're talking, he's very aware that Army game, you got Auburn, Army, Alabama, AAA. That's going to be fun. Army going to the spread. Next thing you know, we're going to have somebody there in the Corps of Cadets with a man bun. I'm kidding. No, but it's an awesome deal because, and also they're playing Grambling, and we had Eddie Robinson III on, Eddie Robinson's grandson, a couple of weeks ago. What a great segment that was, and he listens to the show Eddie does every day to Sidelines, lives over in Atlanta, but he goes back over to Grambling quite a bit, and just an awesome museum there of football history of his
Think how many people in the NFL
over 200
Coach Robinson put into the NFL. I mean, that's just
over 200. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. And out of respect to our good friend Ken Capps, and Ken was having some technical difficulties with the link I sent him. With this show, again, is all about history, traditions, and heroes. Ken, do you remember this one when there was technical difficulties?
Yes, I sure do. That's why it's called live radio, live internet, right?
You just gotta love that old organ music playing in the background. But Mildred, my wife, is
Ford.
Yeah, Mildred is sleeping. I mean, my wife this morning, so I'm producing everything myself, and of course Nigel is back at the underground bunker in Memphis. He puts the show out on all the. I think we go on 18 different social media platforms. Once the show's over, that's when it really gets crazy with all the editing. But Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America, out in Dallas, and Dave Tompkins. This is Ken Capps. Dave's over in the Low Country in the Beaufort, South Carolina, over there in humidity country of the world. But we've been talking a lot about college football, Ken. And man, you sent me some notes last night that just got me bouncing off the walls. I'm going to let you just put the ball in your hand. You got some great points you want to make, and let her rip, man. This is what it's all about, is engaging our guests.
Well, thanks a lot, Rob. It's great to be back with you here. Just a couple of weeks before the season starts, and to your guest, I'm on my phone, so I really my eyes are too bad to actually read what the names are up on the screen. But my wife and I just spent our 30th wedding anniversary in Savannah and Hilton Head.
Oh, fantastic!
So I went by your town several times there. Really enjoyed it.
Oh, well, that was great to have you. And 30 years, that's a very impressive feat.
Well, we just got in under the wire, but it all counts. And we had never been to Savannah, and really had a great time there. Learned a lot of great history there. And then of course Hilton Head was so beautiful. So when you said Beaufort, I just thought I gotta throw that in there.
There you go. Perfect. And we love our golf here, and Memphis is loving its golf this weekend with the St. Jude first round of the playoffs, and we got Jordan Spieth leading, Tom Kim right on nipping at his heels. So it must be fun to be in Memphis this weekend.
Well, Jordan Spieth, he's our local boy from here. You'll notice, Rob, I put that up for you today. I put Ken C in the Metroplex. That is Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yep.
I remember when Jordan was like a teenager, he was on the first page of the leaderboard at the Byron Nelson one year.
Yeah.
And he was in it all the way till Sunday afternoon, and that was a precursor of what we were going to get. And I'd love to see him win this weekend.
Boy, I would too.
When Jordan's.
Yeah, I one time I know we need to get on to football because I'm so fired up about these football points. But I remember a few years ago when he was really young, walking up on the 18th green at the Byron Nelson out there at the Four Seasons in Las Colinas were Jordan Spieth, Ben Crenshaw, and Tom Kite.
Wow!
And I thought I just died and went to heaven.
Everyone, well, you obviously don't, but everyone forgets that Tom Kite was also a tremendous Longhorn.
Right, exactly. And he went to my high school. See, I'm number 2 on the list of famous alumni from my high school after Tom Kite. At least in my own mind I am, right? but listen,
I'm number like 1,000. I think number 1 for me is Courtney Cox is number 1.
Oh yeah.
Major Oval
yeah.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Boy, we can get up here. We can get up here and not talk a lick of football before 10 because I was always a big Courtney Cox fan too.
Oh yeah.
But
No
but
question.
anyway. So here's what I think is so funny, gentlemen. We are 2 weeks away from college football kicking off, and the season is already off the rails. I mean, completely off the rails. And what's been going on here since we got back from South Carolina is just unreal. And I basically went from our anniversary trip to Big 12 media days and then to SEC media days. And that was kind of what I wanted to start out with was what came out of SEC media days and what was said this week. And number one, I'm kind of kidding here a little bit, but it's true. All of the state of Texas, all the Aggies in Aggie land, and now all of the SEC can go to bed, and sleep well tonight because they know that Bobby Petrino has confirmed that he is calling the plays at Texas A&M. Okay, we know that now for sure. We don't have to guess anymore.
Right.
And Rob was there. That was like the first question he was asked off the podium at SEC media days, and he talked in riddles. And it was
the
like
Al Haig of college coaches.
yes, but it's like a yes or no question, or pretty close to a yes or no question, and you could just tell that Jimbo did not want to say, I'm not calling the plays, and it's like, okay, well, life's going to go on either way. But I just thought it was very interesting that just a few days ago, earlier this week, that Bobby Petrino came out and flat out said, hey, I've been calling the plays in practice, and I'm going to be calling the plays during the game. So, at least now we've got that confirmed, and life can move on from here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be fun to watch. But Olin Buchanan was on from TexAgs.com a couple of days ago, and I love talking with him. The Texas sports writers. I mean, you, Kirk Bowles, Olin Buchanan. There's just so many. God, there's so many good ones. But that's everybody says the same thing about Jimbo Fisher. And now you just made a point, Bobby Petrino. I'm calling the plays. He wants a Power 5 job. He's a capable coach. And you know what? Hey, past indiscretions, whatever. Put him. Hey, he's asked for forgiveness. I know one thing. He got a standing ovation at the Touchdown Club in Little Rock from people over there. Hey, man, I'm sorry. I screwed up. I'm not driving y'all to the Food King, though, like an Animal House. You trusted us. No, but
that's right.
He apologized, and he's moving on. But let me tell you something. That guy can coach like very few people can. He can call plays. Ken, really cool point. I want to get to it now because, man, this is ADD Friday and OCD Friday, and I'm the chairman of that. What were we talking about? I forgot. But anyway, UT picks up massive 2024 commitment. It's already starting to happen. The quality of the front seven on defense is starting to, it's called a flight to quality in the stock market. Everybody comes to America. They're going to Austin now. Let's talk about that.
Well, and that was another big point. And this just happened yesterday that and this is a massive pickup for the University of Texas and Steve Sarkisian. They got Colin Simmons for the 2024 class. He is a edge rusher, 5-star edge rusher from Duncanville, Texas, which is just right down the road here. In fact, it's considered part of the Metroplex, Rob, and just right down the road. But even more importantly, Duncanville is a powerhouse, and they won the 6A state championship last year, which are the big dogs here in Texas. And this Colin Simmons guy was a recruit that everybody wanted. But the reason why it's important is that Texas beat out LSU, Alabama, and A&M for this kid. And for those of the people that thought that Sark was not going to be able to recruit against the teams in the big in the SEC, that's just, it's already happening. I mean, the last 5-star they got was just a few months ago. His name was Arch Manning. So they always get the 4 stars. Now they're getting the 5 stars that are normally headed straight to Alabama or places like LSU. And the last point about that, you and I were talking about this the other day, is this is really going to pit again, like the old Big 12 and the Southwest Conference, A&M against Texas. And boy, does A&M hate losing a recruit like this to the University of Texas. And now, here we all are in the same league again, 90 miles apart, kumbaya. And it's going to be direct on direct recruiting again in the same conference, playing each other. And it's not going to be pretty between the Ags and the Horns.
Look, I just got this from a listener out in Harlingen, Texas, listening right now on Sidelines. And he says, in the words of LA motorist Rodney King, can't we all just get along? We're in the same conference, aren't we? Kumbaya.
Almost. That's right.
Well,
almost.
I'm old enough to remember that back in my childhood, the one team that Coach Bryant could not beat was Texas.
Yeah.
And we just lost to them, and that's one of my most bitter memories as a kid is Coach Bryant never being able to beat Texas. And I'm a little worried about this year, even though the game's in Tuscaloosa. I am a little bit worried about it.
What did Coach Bryant say prior to the 1972 Iron Bowl about they knew they were going to play Texas in the bowl game? He was undefeated, as Sonny said at Alex's Tavern. Not undefeated, but undefeated. He said, I'd rather lose to Texas 10 times and lose to that damn Cal College.
Yeah.
And that's where Terry Henley famously said, we're going to beat the number 2 out of them. And after they did, that's when the tradition of throwing toilet paper at Toomer's Corner started, because, Dave, you were there. No.
Well,
you were
Greg
listening to John Forney
far enough back on those punts.
Yeah, that was crazy. But, look, here's some more. Ken, you got some great stuff. I mean, now, I want to ask you the recruiting. And Dave and I both, Auburn's got 2 5-stars. They may get another one in the next weekend. That the closed for business sign is out of the front window at Auburn football offices. They're back in business. Kids that weren't even contacted by the previous staff are now going, thank you for inviting me over to campus. We feel welcome. It's kind of like the Iron Curtain has been lifted. But when you think about Texas and what this does for recruiting, and Ken, you write and you travel all over the country. They're telling these kids now on the interior of the defensive line, don't leave Texas. You can stay here. And edge rushers were always the commodity, but this is the scary part when you start thinking about 400 plus D1 players a year coming out of the Lone Star State with 30 million people that we know of. Again, I haven't checked the turnstile counts on the Rio Grande this morning. Those numbers are ever increasing.
No, but see here, and that's kind of goes back to my point. And I want to emphasize, Texas used to get those players all the time, but in the last, and I mean the creme of the players in Texas, but over the last 15 years, ever since Texas lost to Alabama out there at the Rose Bowl, it's just always kind of been this up and down, up and down, up and down. And the big players, Alabama sells them on this. They say, hey, you want to come win championships? You come to Alabama. And these kids, the loyalty of states anymore, I don't think is there. You're going to go play where you're going to win championships, where you're going to have your best chance to get into the NFL. And that's a place like Alabama. And I think now that, Texas recruiting was great last year. It's definitely good. The group that's coming in this year, it's going to be playing this fall, and then 24 to get this kid. Oh my gosh! And his mama, and it always goes back to mama, right? His mama was just just raving about Steve Sarkisian and saying that, we have Colin has a brother who's artistic and that he's just been taken in as part of the family, and our entire family has been taken in under Texas. And, that's this kind of stuff that counts.
Yeah.
And y'all know that, but I'm just saying, I really saw this yesterday and I thought, gosh, I've got to talk about this with Rob and his guests today, because this is, normally I don't like to always go on and on about every kid, because, nobody, Darryl Royal said it best. Everybody's got potential. Potential means you haven't done it yet. And, but this is a major 5-star, massive guy that chose Texas over all these SEC schools. And boy, they're going to be crowing at the top of the Texas Tower this morning about it.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that once Texas has that signature win, which I think was probably going to, unfortunately, maybe this coming season, I think the floodgates are going to open. There's so much. Austin is such an attractive place for kids to go to college and play winning sports, and the atmosphere there. And I think the floodgates will open, and there'll be no looking back. And it's just a matter of when.
But still, I go the other way, and, full disclosure, I'm an undergraduate Texas journalism grad. And, but, we've thought that those floodgates were going to open for a long, long time. And every year it's Texas. The worst thing you can say at Texas is Texas is back.
Yeah.
When Sam Ellinger said that after Texas beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl in 2018, everybody, literally everybody around didn't cheer. They cringed because they know that people have said that before. And you know what? It's been absolutely right. Texas has not been back since 2018.
Yeah, well, this league is so competitive, and I agree with what you're saying. Dave, both of y'all, the only easy day was yesterday in the SEC. You win a game 49-48 over Oklahoma. You don't say we're back. You're saying our defense sucks. That's what they say at Auburn or Alabama. I guess the SEC and Texas is going to get like this. It won't take them long. They're going to get mad when the other team gets the ball. But that competition is good because you want to shut out every game. Remember Dr. Tom Osborne, Nebraska would win a game 69-3, and he go, well, I was concerned about the special teams. Missed that extra point there. It should have been 70, but and we gave up the field goal late. I'm going to have to work the defense hard. I'm so myopically focused on winning the game, and I didn't realize we gave up 107 yards on defense. So, it was every game. But you know what? He set a tone, set a tenor. And I do think Matt Rule is going to bring Nebraska back into the modern era of college football. I think that guy, he won at Baylor. How hard is it, gentlemen, to win at Baylor, especially with Ann Richardson as an alumnus? I don't know if she's still around, but remember when the Pac-12 how much power they used to have, tried to raid the state of Texas, and she didn't let it happen.
That's right. Yeah. Ann Richards, man, she was I knew her a little bit, and boy, she could rule this state like with an iron fist. And she's a Baylor grad. Yeah, that's right. And you're right. They got the legislature involved in football, and nobody from Texas left. And of course, that doesn't happen anywhere else. The legislature doesn't get involved in college football anywhere else in the country.
Not in Alabama, for sure. Never.
In Birmingham, they love the governor, as they say out there. But no, Matt Rule did a fantastic job. And he was a terrific guy to interview, to talk to. And, he's had a hard week too. He had to kick one of his best and biggest players off the team for undisclosed, reasons. So I don't know what that means, but, so he's not up there. He's not up there just letting things slide. He's going to do exactly what he did at Baylor, which is, set a really hard tone. And look what he did. He ended up winning ended up winning a Big 12 championship before Texas did.
Yep.
Baylor. They're a private school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel badly for him, but I think the whole image of Scott Frost will fade quickly in their Nebraska rearview mirror.
All you got to do is win.
Yep.
Yeah. He seemed like he was going to be a rock star. I mean, everybody thought he was. Let me say something real quick. Hewlett & Dunn, Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square, Collierville, Tennessee, one of our sponsors. New brands are coming in every day. The truck comes to the back. They deliver the boxes. They open the boxes, and the new goods are out on the floor. Pendleton, Schaefer Outdoors, Danner, Vask, Light Boots, and Higher Boots. Now, this out of homage to Ken being from the great state of Texas, currently residing in the Metroplex. You know who invented the cowboy boot? Higher Boots invented the cowboy boots. Hyer. They've got them at Hewlett & Dunn, Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square. One other thing, the first annual St. Paul Open, October 2nd, 8 a.m. Central. That's in the morning. Chickasaw Country Club, dinner the night before. St. Paul Open will benefit the Bishop Peter J. Sarton Scholarship Fund. Call Michael Jordan, MJ, that's right, 901-647-3014. All teams have been sold out. So unless you want to pay a lot, maybe you can get a team. But they do have flag and hole sponsors. They need money for participants. Don't volunteers, items donated in lieu of cash. But their goal is to raise $75,000. And the money goes to help send kids to Catholic schools that might not otherwise have that opportunity. And they do. Bishop Sarton is one of the finest men that ever lived, along with Brother Stephen O'Malley and Brother Adrian and Brother Joel. I'm kind of partial to these gentlemen at Christian Brothers High School, 5900 Walnut Grove. Anyway, great cause, Catholic or not, great to support it. They do a lot of great work. I want to ask you, Ken, I love the fact, and Mr. Bill Hancock is so nice to us coming on this show. He's just he's really cool. Y'all would have loved this. We had him on the show at the Grand Hyatt, and the smart guy was Ken Capps, staying literally across the street at the Holiday Inn Express. I'm going, well, why didn't I stay there? But we stayed at the Grand Hyatt. We're doing the show, and I've got Will Gunner from Columbia, South Carolina, on as a guest, and Mr. Bill Hancock. And all of a sudden, this bolt of lightning right out of Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, and it lights up, and everybody's lit. I'm like, is everybody still there? But, man, I said, you're not really retiring, are you? But he means a lot to college football. You get to spend time around him. We think of Birmingham as a powerful, influential place for college football. Atlanta as well. Dallas, Fort Worth. There's so much. Conference USA, American Athletic Conference, the Big 12. There's a lot going on out there. And then Mr. Bill Hancock.
And like I said, the conference, the conference college football playoff committee meets here. His office is here. And I thought it was very interesting. So it's going to be great when you guys are all going to come to Dallas next year and see me for SEC Media Days. I thought that was great that they announced that since Texas and Oklahoma are coming into the league next year, that they're going to have the first SEC Media Days outside of the, as they like to say, the SEC footprint in Dallas, Texas. But don't worry, we'll put on a dog for you. We'll have fun with you. But I tell you what I like about Bill Hancock. Bill Hancock is the most down-to-earth, easiest guy to talk to. He does. I mean, he's just. He could just be sitting. Just like when he comes on this show, you see what you're seeing is what you get. He's a genuine guy. He speaks from his heart. He doesn't try to BS you. And he just loves to chat and to visit. And the fact that he will. I mean, the first time he actually spoke to me, I was like, I can't believe this is Bill Hancock speaking to me. I didn't think I was worthy. And now when I see him, it's like, hey, Bill, what's going on? But I can assure you that after he retires, quote unquote, he is still going to be around that committee as a consultant and as just a force around there, because there's too much institutional knowledge and too much in that brain of his. Needs a little bit more hair on top of there, but there's too much in that brain in college football and playoffs that college football needs, and he's going to be happy to stick around. He just doesn't have to drive the boat every day, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've noticed two things over the years as a financial advisor, in addition to doing this show. People never let their CPAs retire. I've had people 3 days younger than God going, I need to see the basis book here. And I'm like, okay. The other one is attorneys. You know, you're an attorney. You can really never retire. So you are of counsel forever. And that's what Mr. Bill Hancock and Dave, I'm telling you, he is really just a genuinely nice man. Man, he's really smart. I mean, and he was with the NCAA basketball committee before he moved into football. So, you know, Dave, that's the guy. I have to get you on when he's on the next time. You learn so much. Get pen and paper handy. I mean, when he's on, Dave Tompkins.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating year for the committee because it's the last year of 4 before they go to 12. It's the last year of the Conference of Champions before it gets obliterated. And I think, people are talking about Oregon and Washington being, really good teams this year. And so there's a lot of sort of special corner case considerations this year, I think, with the committee will face before it arguably gets a little bit easier for them next year. And I cannot wait to see this season unfold. I'm nervous about the Texas-Alabama game, but I can't wait for it. I can't wait for Florida State, LSU. I mean, we get off such a great fast start. The Red River rivalry is going to be fantastic this year. I mean, it's just going to be a really, really special, in my opinion, once in a lifetime college football season. And I tell Kimberly every day, honey, I'm not watching any sports, no sports in August, but prepare for Labor Day weekend.
Kind of intermittent fasting there.
Well, see, here in the Metroplex, we actually have our Texas Rangers in first place in the American League West. So we're actually watching a little baseball right now. I mean, it's very unusual for Texas, for Dallas and Fort Worth to still be interested in baseball around this time of year. But so we've been having a good time with that as well. And the Astros are knocking right on our door.
Yeah,
those the pickups they got right before the trade deadline. The Rangers, I mean, they set themselves up for the postseason, and they're my pick right now, even over the Braves.
Well, and I tell you what, when I was in Nashville and Atlanta the last couple of years for SEC media days, boy, I learned how much y'all love the Braves over there. I don't care what state you're in, you love the Braves. There you go. There you go.
There you are.
Well, look, what this is, this is when they have Auburn night. They do all the colleges in what they call Braves country in their footprint. Now, I don't know of a professional sports franchise that does a better job of marrying into that southeastern fan. I mean, in the Carolinas and everywhere. But Alex Anthopoulos, they call him Double A. I don't know him. I'm not Telly Savalas. Tahoe, Reno, Vegas, Atlantic City, the Caribbean. Ha! Who loves you, baby? Tell them Telly sent you. Remember those great commercials? But that's what I love, Ken and Dave, both of y'all. You get baseball, you get golf, and that FedEx. What's going on out there for St. Jude here in Memphis? We're going to have Mitch Davis on tomorrow, reporting, our live correspondent from the golf course. This is what we love about getting on this show. And I got to say this, man, awesome show. Carol Burnett, the music is in the background. I'm so glad we had this time together. She's 90 years old and still rocking. By the way, I'm watching the Carol Burnett show the other night on MeTV. Harvey Korman and Tim Conway. When Harvey Korman goes to order a hot dog at the deli, and the world's oldest man is there going, trying to see what you want. You can see Harvey Korman just cracking up.
He couldn't get through a scene. He just started dying laughing.
Yeah. Rob, there's so many people that don't know what in the hell you're talking about out here. You know.
Yeah. But the great writers, I will tell you this: the great writers like Ken and like Scott Rabalais that we had on, Yancy Porter, Vince Ferrara. It's just awesome time of year. look, if anybody's keeping track, we're 480 hours away from the start, August 31st, Florida at Utah. And we are 504 hours away from the first big weekend, September 2nd of college football. So, Dave, thank you so much for taking time from the Low Country. Ken Caps, let them know how they can follow you, keep up with you. And let me say this first. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Don't ever miss an opportunity to give back to the people who help you along the way. A kind word or two to somebody that you don't even know makes them feel recognized, and people know they're there, but never miss an opportunity to give back. And we live in the greatest country in the history of the world, folks. You know what? You want to be a BMW, bitching, moaning, and whining? I'll pay for your ticket, and we'll swap you with someone who wants to be here. Ken, tag us out, and until tomorrow, everybody have a great day.
Just go to fwaa.com or .org. I'm sorry. And one other thing, Dave, we went to the Savannah Bananas game and we were there. We had a blast.
I'm going Labor Day night. My beloved sister's flying all the way in from Colorado, and we're going to the Bananas game. Can't wait.
Hey, man, the Savannah Bananas. You absolutely got to love it. Hey, folks, until then, we'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day. We are out of here. All right, Audrey, how do we get off here? Whoops.